It's such a wonderful thing for an artist to understand what they're born to do and do it so well over and over again. So Wake Up Dead Man is the third installment in this hyper successful whodunit series. There's now 3 films. This one follows Knives Out and Glass Onion. Rian Johnson once again returns to write and direct, and Daniel Craig returns in the lead role as Benoit Blanc. And this film follows him as he embarks on his most dangerous case yet. That is all IMDb gives us as far as plot goes, and that's all I'm really going to give in this review. Everything that I say here is going to be completely spoiler free and engineered to preserve your first watch experience. But it's not a spoiler for me to say that Rian Johnson is 3 for 3 here, because this movie is an absolute blast. One could be tempted to say he's on autopilot, putting one of these out every 3 years at a pretty consistent level of quality, but I think that would be doing a disservice to the craft on display here, because with each passing film, Johnson has found a unique way to crack the story open. And in this film, he's definitely giving the information to us in a different order than we're used to. There's extended periods of time without Benoit Blanc even in the story, which is a really risky decision given how iconic that character has become. But I never found myself yearning for him to come back because I was bored. Wake Up Dead Man is so consistently engaging in its storytelling and in the tone that Johnson finds here. He's definitely in his Edgar Allan Poe bag. This is a much more gothic and morbid film. The crime here feels a lot more fatal than the first couple of movies, but it doesn't sacrifice the fun that this series has become known for. There are several moments that, although they're not very funny on the page, really had my entire theater laughing. There's one visual gag in particular involving a staircase that the second it came on screen, my entire theater was in stitches. And that just speaks to the command that Johnson and his crew have over the tone and over the visual storytelling here. They really have their finger on the pulse of where the audience is from scene to scene. And Craig is making the case that James Bond is not a shoo-in for the most iconic role he's ever going to play. He's absolutely excellent in this film once again. And this movie does something that the first two did not really do. Rian Johnson has talked extensively about the fact that he doesn't feel that the protagonist in a whodunit should be the detective. He doesn't think that's very exciting. And so the emotional core of the story is usually with a different protagonist. And that is the case here. However, Benoit Blanc does make realizations over the course of the film about himself, about humanity, and it results in a really compelling arc for him and some really unexpected moments in the final leg of the movie. Josh O'Connor is also in the film. He's been making some really interesting choices as far as the work he's taken as of late, and he is so good in this movie. He's really the engine here. He plays a very flawed priest who is extremely passionate and on fire for Christ and just trying to love the people around him well. And there is not a single note in his performance that rang as inauthentic to me. The whole thing was so heartfelt, and this guy is rapidly becoming one of the more exciting actors working today. The rest of the cast is also great, and I'm not going to name any more names, and the reason that I'm not going to is because with a movie like this, if I were to really dwell on individual performances besides Craig and O'Connor, who if you've seen the trailer or the poster, you know they're very prominent in the movie, but if I were to focus on other characters, I think it might give away who becomes really important to the plot and who has very pivotal moments in the film. So I don't really want to do that. What I will say is that there is one other performance in here that I'm dying to mention, but I won't. In the home stretch of the movie, this person just had a couple barn burner scenes where they stole the show. As of now, I will leave it there without mentioning any other performances by name. Thematically speaking, this is my favorite movie of the series so far. Obviously, the events of the story are embedded in themes of religion and spirituality. Multiple characters are priests, and for a series that's been so tongue-in-cheek and sometimes irreverent, it actually deals with these themes in a way that I found very mature and thoughtful. The sincerity and the clarity with which Johnson writes about issues of faith and where faith stems from, differentiating true faith in God versus faith in self, I found really compelling. I am a Christian, so it's possible that some of these themes may reach me more personally than they reach others, but I just found that from a thematic perspective, this was the most interesting movie in the series. From a narrative perspective, though, there are some shortcomings. I think this film sometimes throws too much at the wall and I didn't always feel the story beats in the way that I did, particularly in that first movie, but also to an extent in Glass Onion. In that first movie, there's this wonderful simplicity, even though the plot gets very complex at times. You always feel like you're able to ask the questions that the characters are asking. And in this movie, there are so many revelations and so many accusations that are made in a hurry, and then we're on to the next thing. And I didn't always feel like I was able to track where the characters were at emotionally. And then in the next scene, I would be like, hold up, so why is this person acting the way that they're acting? And it just felt like there were some red herrings and then some things that were actually very important to the plot that were just kind of skipped over very quickly. I just felt like it was so dense that it lost me a couple of times along the way. Also, this is definitely the most predictable of the three movies in my opinion, and it could be that I'm just kind of trained on how to watch them at this point because I've seen two going into this one, but there were certain details that were shared that were so specific. I was like, I'm gonna keep an eye on that. And I actually think I know how it's going to play into things later on. And then I was right. I didn't predict everything, but I definitely feel like when things clicked into place in the final act, it was a lot less satisfying than the first couple of films. There were moments where I wished that the truth had been concealed from us a bit more effectively. But like I said, at every point, while there are narrative shortcomings, there's a thematic heft to this movie that, in my opinion, counterbalances it and makes it interesting throughout, even when the case-solving aspect of it isn't quite as compelling. And finally, I do feel that the cast of supporting characters is a bit underused at times. Everyone is doing a wonderful job in the cast. There's not a single weak link here. But there are certain people who I just don't think need to be in this story. I think that the film could have utilized a much more limited cast, and that would have solved some issues that I just mentioned, where there's too much getting thrown at the wall. And also, it doesn't make me look at certain performers who I love and just want more from their characters. It's not a matter of them being written or portrayed poorly. It's just a matter of them not really having anything to do in the story. At the end of the day, I had a wonderful time with this movie. I wanted to play it back the second the credits rolled, which has been the case with every single entry in this series. I cannot wait to watch it again. As I'm speaking right now, I'm wondering if I should try to squeeze it in tonight. While the case itself might not be the strongest one we've gotten yet, the way Rian Johnson and his cast and crew embed the themes so seamlessly into the DNA of the film keep it alive and compelling throughout. He has such a great understanding of what makes a whodunit tick, from the location to the very colorful cast of characters to the pervasive sense of discovery, and for all of those reasons, Wake Up Dead Man gets an A-. I would honestly be perfectly fine with Rian Johnson not once deviating from this series for the rest of his career. If the market was suddenly flooded with really good whodunit movies, maybe I would want him to take his talents elsewhere. But as of right now, he's the guy. He's the name in the game, and there's no one else making these things at this level, or even close to this level. I can't wait for the next Knives Out movie. I hope it doesn't take 3 years, but if that's how long it takes to make it this good, so be it. However long it takes, I will be there opening night. I love this series so much, and I'm just so glad that it exists and that Rian Johnson is getting the time and the resources that he needs to pull these things off in the way that he does. It's in limited theaters this week before it goes to Netflix. Do watch it on the big screen if you're able to. If you have seen the movie, let me know what you thought of it. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the movies.